I'm live. My connection might be freezing up. Hear me? And Ashley, who's helping out on the dash, is going to be on the chat as well. So, can you hear me? To hear back somehow that somebody can hear me before I continue. Can you hear me on the screen? Okay, thanks for waiting, people. We're figuring out whether or not I can be heard. If somebody can chat that, that's great. Okay, great. Thanks, Audrey. Glad you're here. Okay, hello, everyone. I'm Judith Kate Friedman. I am many different roles in life. A long-time working artist, teaching artist, creator of music, creator of poetry, and director and founder of Songwriting Works Educational Foundation. Also, the steward of the Mythsinger Legacy Project, my beloved Daniel Deerdorf's work in myth, story, song, teaching, and carrying the ancient stories from the oral tradition. So I think we're just going to do a deep dive into a little sounding to open up the night, and then see where these blue and other tags want to take me in this book. This book full of wonder called The Other Within. I mean, just think about your within right now. How many others are in there inside you? The ones you want to look at, the ones you would rather not pay attention to, the ones that clamor for attention anyway, the ones that you only show to certain people, the ones that tickle your fancy, the ones that stay undercover so that they have more space to abide by their truth in the midst of swirls of other people's opinions and sometimes laws and so on. So one of the things in this book is trickster wisdom, and it's good to see some old friends there coming in on the chat. Let's start here. I was on a podcast not long ago with Donna Sebo, and we talked a little bit about this, but I think we can get a little further into it here. And I want to welcome anyone in the chat who wants to interact with what I'm saying to please do so, because I'm watching your words come in as you're listening and viewing, so I can answer questions and weave different things in, maybe even pick out some other things to share. Daniel Deerdorf writes, in mythological time, when the wheel turns round again to the anniversary of an event, then past, present, and future intersect, forming a temporal axis. That's AXIS. In mythological space, where boundaries cross and worlds are hinged, heaven, earth, and hell intersect, forming a spatial axis. In mythological consciousness, when and where the inner world, when and where the inner world and the outer world interpenetrate, in the spirit and the flesh, instinct, intellect, and inspiration intersect, forming a psychosomatic axis. And when the spatio-temporal and the psychosomatic align, and the nexus of axial connections coincide, when the golden harp is strung, Only then is the singer's temple realized. In the abyss of the miserere, the crisis of human kindness, the time, tempo, and temple of communitas. So I'm going to actually give you some words from the glossary here so you know exactly what Daniel Deerdorf means by communitas, the sense of intimacy developed among persons who experience liminality together. And I just have to say, in these times that we're in, who is not experiencing some liminality, and we are together? It's good to come together in a moment like this so that we're intentionally together experiencing liminality, the deep sense of connection that we experience when we are stripped down to nothing through crisis. And we know about that. So I'm going to read it again, and I'll reference a few words as needed, as I feel they're needed, or as you tell me they're needed. In mythological time, when the wheel turns round again to the anniversary of an event, then past, present, and future intersect, forming a temporal axis. In mythological space, where boundaries cross and worlds are hinged, heaven, earth, and hell intersect, forming a spatial axis. In mythological consciousness, when and where the inner world and the outer world interpenetrate, in the spirit and the flesh, instinct, intellect, and inspiration intersect, forming a psychosomatic axis. And when the spatio-temporal and the psychosomatic align and the nexus of axial connections coincide, when the golden harp is strung, only then is the singer's temple realized. In the abyss of the miserere, the crisis of human kindness, the time, tempo, and temple of communitas. Just to gloss on the miserere, the Latin word that means expression of lamentation or a cry for mercy. So you can hear all that paradox. We have the spatio-temporal, the psychosomatic, and the inner consciousness, the outer consciousness, the awareness, the space, the time, all intersecting. When this happens, only then is the golden harp strung and the singer's temple that Rilke talked about realized. In the abyss of this cry, this lamentation for mercy, is the crisis of human kindness, the tempo, time, and temple of communitas, the clear, amazing sense of connection, value, undescribable courage that upwells among us when we're helping each other through a crisis, when we're feeling the power of community. Such a profound and soulful coincidence of reality spheres, like the first experience, Deerdorf writes, may last no more than a glimpsed instant. With devotion, practice, and the cunning to rearrange one's life, the axial experience may be cultivated and sustained for hours, repeatedly, throughout a lifetime. Needless to say, such a departure, viewed from the structure-bound and normative perspective, will look like the Helican's infamous fall through a hole in the floor. That clown character in medieval stagecraft, where there was a trap door and all of a sudden they would disappear out of the story, perhaps coming back at another point in time. Needless to say, such a departure this departure into the realness, the communitas, the first experience, viewed from the structure-bound and normative perspective. And there he's talking about the civil society norms, civil society, will look like the infamous fall through a hole in the floor. Thus, in the quest for a temple, as maintained throughout this book, those who are forced out of the big house have a certain excruciating advantage. Just take a moment to think about the part of you that doesn't belong wherever it thinks it's supposed to or has been told it's supposed to. Can you feel some of the freedom in that, not being structure bound? Walking the thorn-strewn way into such a sanctuary, Deardorff writes, then, is to pass through the jaws of hell, the all-swallowing mandorla, a multi-dimensional crossroads in space and time, body and mind. Admission to this multivalent or multivalent zone requires disillusionment, the shedding of any hoped-for return to the promised life. Gaining entry to the temple of the miserere will prove, therefore, to be costly, entailing grave risks, one of those impossible tasks, an initiatory condition set for us by Baba Yaga, such as leave the herd and carry them with you. Baba Yaga very famously asks anyone who comes to visit her at her three-legged hut, her yurt-like hut that is upheld on chicken legs, and I think sometimes rotates around. She asks, did you come here by free will or compulsion? And either one that you answer, if it's one or the other, that's the end. Head goes right on the stake on the outside of the gate where many other heads can be seen. That's Baba Yaga. So she says, leave the herd and carry them with you. Upon this aporia, where two roads intersect inside us, Rilke writes, no one has built the singer's temple. Earlier today, we were talking about what does aporia mean? So this is another word that is actually the name of a chapter in the book and that Daniel liked to use. And it means an irresolvable internal contradiction or logical disjunction. Logical disjunction in and of itself sounds like an oxymoron, yeah, logical disjunction. Yeah, let's just pay attention more closely to all these things. So upon this logical disjunction, where two roads intersect inside us, no one has built the singer's temple. And Deardorff writes, standing here at the crossroads of compulsion and free will, one confronts the extremities of self and soul. I am not I, as Juan Ramon Jimenez has written. I am this one, standing beside me. And about this, Deardorff then writes, the impossible passageway into temple is through the no place, the no self, suspended between the mind of self and the other mind, of the anti-self, the daimon, the paraclete, the wounded healer, the spiritual twin. And this comes as no dim, dismissible inkling, but the detonation of a thunderbolt. For the fragmented underground and uprooted liminoid, the one who is maybe feeling betwixt and between, but is pretending not to and doesn't allow itself to quite go into true liminality. For the fragmented, undergrounded, and uprooted liminoid, this will be a